I'm going to go ahead and say it. I probably have a number one on my ballot.
Okay. Let's hope it's the same guy.
Coby White is going to be the guy.
Yes.
He's going to be the guy, man.
Welcome.
I think Coby kind of incorporates some of all the different points we've made about improved players to this point from Duncan and Kuminga. So kind of blending that together, the numbers are up, the role is increased. And I want to kind of set the stage here before we get really deep into his game. He was not dealt a great hand at the beginning of the season. He was still having to deal with playing behind Zach LaVine. DeRozan's still on the roster. I mean, going into the season, it wasn't even a sure thing that he was going to be above Dosunmu in the rotation. So his role was really just kind of murky. It's not like he came in here and it's like, hey, you're the starter. Just peer the keys and make something happen. He really kind of had to earn his spot throughout the season and gain the confidence of the coaching staff going forward from there. Obviously, Lonzo Ball has missed another full season, so that was a role that a development that opened up more of a role for Coby. It's unfortunate, but somebody had to step into that role. And I mean, really, if we go back to the beginning of the season, like first 14 games or so, it wasn't even really a discussion for Coby being in the most improved conversation. We kind of saw more of the same. He hadn't made a huge jump. He was at about 11 points per game, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, first 14 games. It's like, okay, I mean, that's good, but nothing really stands out about it. And then we got to the LaVine injury 25 games in. So he was out. Lonzo Ball shut down. They had some other injuries. I think Vucevic missed a few weeks. Patrick Williams went down with a season-ending injury. Bodies started dropping all over the place. And Coby needed to assume a bigger role. He took over that role, and he's been great ever since. So now his averages for the season are 19, almost 20, 4, almost 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. So, okay, obviously the scoring is up by about 10 points per game. So that's what we're seeing from guys like him and Jalen Johnson. Like the scoring is just way up from last season. Kuminga, huge increases. About 13 more minutes per game. So, yes, he's getting more minutes. I mean, he's playing well over 30 minutes per game. 2 more shots per game. He is shooting 3% better on 2-point percentage and 3-point percentage. So he's efficient in those extra shots he's getting per game. He's shooting about 10% better at the rim. And this is something I wanted to highlight.
Yes.
Last year, 52%, 62% this season. So, and he's also shooting more of his shots at the rim. 3% more of his shots are coming at the rim compared to last season. Last season, about 28%. This season, 31%. He's also drawing more fouls. So when he gets to the rim, there's more opportunities for free throws. So about 0.9 last season. That was roughly his foul rate last season. About one I think per game as far as like drawing fouls. Now it's over 3 per game. And last season, there's another season I want to use as a reference, 2021, because that was his previous best season before now. Because last season, it was kind of like Duncan. It's like he was here and he dipped last season, and now he's even back higher than 2 years ago. So 2021, he was at about 2.1 as far as the fouls. Now he's at 3.4. So even compared to his best season, he is higher. So I want to use that as a frame of reference because looking at last season, of course, his numbers are going to be better because last season for him was his worst season. So it's going to be easier to kind of look at that compared to this season and be like, oh, wow, there's a huge jump. And yes, there is a big jump there. But I mean, 2 years ago, he was also playing a good amount of minutes per game. His sophomore season, some of the numbers were pretty good. But even compared to that season, he's made a jump from there. So this is clearly his best season so far. So those are some of the highlights here for Coby, getting at the rim, getting the free throws. But I mean, there's other stuff as far as his 3-point shooting. He's taking more shots off the dribble. He's super efficient at spot ups, things like that. So the stage is set, man. What else you got to add to his most improved case?
Sub me in, let me cook, man. Oh my god, I love watching Coby White. I'm sorry if anybody just heard this. The volume gap must be crazy right now. You were talking like this, and I went whoop because man, I am so excited to talk about Coby White. Oh my god, I keep a list of the top 10 or so players from every draft class since 2018 with some honorable mentions. Like it's my own personal list. I kind of started working on it when I was doing the 2021 draft class report cards kind of in the middle of the season. I kind of started building this list out. I have never been more happy that I decided to extend it as far back as I did because I don't think I've in the 3 or 4 years, how many years is it? In the 3 years I've been doing this, I've never seen a player in one season jump as far up from where he was originally on my board to where he is now as Coby White. And this is for a guy who was drafted in 2019. Keep in mind, this sort of development, you don't typically see it. A lot of times you're like, well, I guess he's in his 5th season, whatever. I guess he's more of a finished product at this point. No, he's not. Not with Coby White. This is why he is the most improved player to me. A lot of young players, when they make huge improvements, Jalen Williams has improved a lot. But again, some of that is opportunity. Şengün has improved a lot. Some of that is opportunity. You see some of these players from these younger draft classes improving, but some of that probably should be factored in because they are 2nd or 3rd year players.
Right.
To get a development like this from a 5th year player who the Bulls basically, I guess, kind of considered to just be a bench player at this point. They kind of thought, oh, well, we were really intrigued by him. We drafted him high up in that class. We had real hopes for him, but oh, well, sometimes it doesn't pan out. I mean, that's kind of where they were at this point.
Yeah.
And then for him to go through the massive changes he has oh my God, let me compose myself. I mean, I'm just so excited to talk about him. Yeah. His film is some of the most fun film to watch this year. And it's because I think with LaVine out, it's not just that LaVine is out. It's that LaVine is out, so he got more opportunity. And then he just took it and ran with it to such a degree. Oh my goodness. Okay, LaVine is out, right? And you think, okay, with LaVine out, oh my God, what are the Bulls going to do? They lost one of their main drivers, right? Of not just drivers of offense, but I mean people who generate drives into the paint and kick it out to others, right? That was supposed to be LaVine's main strength. If you look at the numbers, last season as a team, the Bulls generated, hold on, let me get it here, 43 drives per game, and they were in the bottom 6 of the league. So they weren't generating that many drives per game, despite having personnel like LaVine and DeRozan. It just didn't seem to work. And LaVine, I think partially because he hasn't been the same as he was during his last All-Star season. He's still a little bit like iffy here or there with the injuries. Yeah, and because Coby White himself couldn't generate that many paint touches, they didn't have that many options to go to. Sunmu can only really do that if he's kind of isoed up from the half court and you give him a screen or something and he can just roll downhill. Asking him to actually make moves off the dribble doesn't tend to work. So they didn't really have anybody else who could do that. This season with LaVine out, you think, oh, well, I guess they're going to suffer in that regard. No, compadres. The Bulls are averaging 53 drives per game. So that's a 10 drive increase. They're now in the top 10 in the league in terms of drives per game. And a lot of that difference can be tracked to one man, Coby White. He is averaging 9.7 points. He was averaging 2.4 points per game on drives last season, and is averaging 7.1 points per game on drives this season. So he himself is contributing a 5 point per game difference in terms of drives per game. And then because he's driving so much, he's being able to generate more of those kickouts. So those are giving him more easy assists. And if you're going to play as a point guard of an offense, you kind of need to generate easy assists. So a player like Colin Sexton, a problem he used to have in the past was he was stuck in no man's land. He couldn't really generate easy assists as a point guard, but he's too small to be a shooting guard. And that's kind of a problem Coby White has had. Defensively, he's still hit or miss here or there. He won't foul too much, but he's not really a good defender. So you needed more playmaking from him. You needed a reason that he would be on the court as a main creator. And when you're going to drive as much as he is these days, yeah, of course we're going to let you start at point guard. In terms of pull-ups, his pull-up efficiency last season, he only had 1.5 points per game on pull-ups, and his effective field goal percentage was 42%, which is it's below average. It's not great. I mean, he was shooting 28% on three when he was trying pull-ups. It was not great. This season, 4.1 points per game off of pull-ups with a 51% effective field goal percentage because he's shooting 40.5% from three.
Yep.
And again, it comes down to the handle. there's been an article written recently about how much he trained over this offseason and last offseason to improve his handle, and it's so apparent when you watch him.
I read that article
You read
myself.
that too, right? It was a great article. It was a great article. It made me so happy to read it. I'm so glad to see his hard work rewarded.
Oh yeah.
I'm so glad to see him believe in himself when I think most you could say had cast him aside.
Yeah, for sure. Wrote him off.
Because those paint touches, it's not like even necessarily that he's playing off of other people. It's not like he's playing off of Vooch as much as you would think. Those are self-created, self-generated paint touches with not that much of a fallback option, and with DeRozan actually taking a step back on offense. This is not the DeRozan who was an all-star, though. He's been on fire the last month or so. Shout out to him. But for most of the season, this was not the same DeRozan as we had gone in the last 2 seasons prior. He was having a little bit more trouble generating clean shots from mid-range. And so that was another problem that the Bulls kind of had, where it's okay, we don't have Levine, and DeRozan, partially because of age, might not be the all-star he was in seasons past. What are we going to do? So for Coby to just all of a sudden generate, he's so crisp now with his moves. I mean, his through-the-leg moves now are some of the best in the league. His handle, he is really quick twitch, not just with his feet, with his footwork, but with his handle too. His in and outs, his crosses, his behind the backs. I mean, they are so crisp compared to what they were in seasons past. He almost never has to pause his dribble now and just stall out and pass to somebody else without generating a paint touch. He can pretty much generate touches whenever he wants. Some of those drives are also because a Coby White-led offense is naturally going to be pace-wise faster than a DeRozan or Levine offense was, because those guys, I think, were much more meticulous and slower about how they were generating paint touches, especially older Levine. Young Levine would fly up and down, but older Levine not as much.
Yeah.
Coby plays with those fresh legs. He will take those transition opportunities, and that's great when you have Caruso or Dosunmu flanking you, because that's kind of where those guys are great as well. So I think in terms of the team synergy, they are kind of building around Coby White as a fulcrum, with DeMar DeRozan still being DeMar DeRozan to some degree, and that's kind of why the Bulls have been able to turn around what seemed like an absolute dreadful 5-13 start.
Oh, they were awful coming out of the gate.
Miserable.
I mean, there were player meetings. The sky was falling. It was So it really turned a corner. And I mean, for all the reasons you said, Coby White deserves a ton of credit. They have to acknowledge the fact that he has been the primary driving force for the turnaround. And I mean, for all the reasons you said, that it's, of course, the numbers support it, but also, the excitement you displayed there is very justified. Just looking at the way he creates his shots, everything you would want from a modern NBA player to infuse entertainment into a game, he brings it to the table. The touch, the pull-up shooting, the spot-up shooting, the dribble drive game, the shake, getting by defenders. I mean, you know this. Coming out of UNC, he had that quickness, from the jump. He was always a guy that had that quick twitch, the quick first step. He could fly up the court. All the draft boards in the draft analysis had that as one of his primary traits and strengths, was the quickness. So if you pair the handle and the above average 3-point shooting with the quickness, you have somebody that can get to any area of the floor that they want to. Mid, rim, three, it doesn't matter. If he says, I want to get to the rim, or I want to get to that spot on three, in the wing area of the 3-point line to get a pull-up three, he's going to do it. He can create good looks for himself because of all that training he did this last offseason with Johnny Stephen in the gym. And the thing about Johnny, he's worked out with DeRozan. He's worked out with CP3. He's worked out with AD. And if you look at all those guys' games, it's no coincidence. I noticed this about DeMar a few years ago. His handle got really tight.
Yes.
I want to say 3 or 4 years
all of their handles improved over time.
Yeah. You see it. AD, you see it.
Yes.
I mean, CP3's always had that in his game. But, these guys, their handle
even him.
So tight.
He's a Hall of Fame guy. Yeah. He's always adding stuff.
For sure. They all really benefited from just that improved dribble and handle. So, yeah, I mean, to sum it up, we have him at the top of our boards because not only are their numbers great, but the impact is there. the emergence of every part of his game is there, and like, and he signed a 3-year, $33 million deal last summer, and the Bulls
Hilarious.
have got the bargain of
Oh
one of
my
the
God,
bargains of
yes.
the year, because he's improved so much. 20-point per game score, 20 plus, able to take over games. And if you watch the end of Bulls games, I'm sure you've seen this. There will
Yes.
be possessions where DeRozan, and we know DeRozan is clutch, and he's one of the best guys to have the ball in their hands at the end of the game. He will pass to Coby, let Coby cook.
Yes.
DeMar will be on the other side of the floor, weak side, just kind of waiting to see what happens. And he's a release valve if something goes bad, but he lets Coby take the show. And that is the ultimate sign of respect. Like, DeMar is trusting you to make something happen in the last 2 minutes of a close game.
Yes.
What better recommendation is there? That tells you all you need to know.
It speaks about decision making. I mean, after all, there were times with LaVine as you couldn't really trust LaVine so much as in the clutch necessarily, because if he got doubled or if he was presented with a look he's not familiar with, his passing angles and reads aren't necessarily there. But because Coby has kind of played a bit of combo, played a bit of point here and there everywhere, he just has such a good feel for getting those release valve passes off, which is part of why DeRozan is able to trust him so much. I just want to make one last point here. We're talking so much about how he's improved his handle like this. It reminds me of another prospect, someone who was drafted kind of in the middle of the lottery round area, and then basically 2 years in a row was a most improved candidate. Did he win both years? I think he might have. And basically established himself as a perennial all-star, and that's Paul George. He's another player where it reminded me of when he first came into the league versus 3 or 4 years down the line when he was with the Pacers and they were going head to head with LeBron. You could just see how much his handle had improved, and it unlocked everything else in his game. And especially the sign of the ultimate respect there is when the coaches start giving you those pick and roll ball handler possessions, and then you start being efficient with them. So that was the last point I wanted to make here. Last season, Coby White only got one. He only scored 1.5 points per game as the pick and roll ball handler, and with his efficiency was around the 53rd percentile. So like right around average. This season he's scoring 5.4 points per game as a pick and roll ball handler, and he's in the 63rd percentile. So he's increased his effectiveness and his efficiency as a scorer while also getting a larger volume. Not every player can sustain a larger volume of being that pick and roll playmaker and still maintain their own self-scoring efficiency, and he has. So it's just a test in almost every facet of his game. There's been offensively, there's been an improvement one way or another, and it's just incredible.